It's not in your best interest to work at home. If you're just sitting in your pajamas in your bedroom, is that the work life you want to live? What have you reduced your life to?
What have you reduced your life to if you just work at home, right? I know. It's going to be a good video, so stay tuned. So the two people in that video are Malcolm Gladwell. He's an author, and now he has a small business. And then the other guy is Stephen Bartlett, and he does a podcast on YouTube on his own channel called The Diary of a CEO, in which he just interviews a bunch of different people, but it's more like diarrhea of a CEO.
It's not in your best interest to work at home. I know it's a hassle to come to the office.
That's my favorite part, when these people come on and tell you what's in your best interest, having no idea what the context of your life is or how you work. You gotta love it.
Don't you want to feel part of something? If you're just sitting in your pajamas in your bedroom, is that the work life you want to live?
If you're just sitting in your bedroom wearing pajamas, so there's like a dig at working at home. Number one, if you're at home working, you're a slob and you're lazy and you do nothing. Sure, there are probably some of those people, but just lumping everyone in that category, that's just not right. And you know it.
If we don't feel like we're part of something important, what's the point? You're not just doing this to get a pay. If it's just a paycheck, then it's like, what have you reduced your life to?
If it's just a job, not everyone has that opportunity to make how they make a living their passion and purpose in life. If you get to the point where your job is your passion and purpose, chances are you probably own that company. So when you're talking to employees who don't own the company, who don't share that same passion as you, the owner, you would just be delusional to expect the people to have just as much passion about your company as you do when they don't share in it the same way as you. So then this next part, he starts talking about how he goes to Los Angeles to pitch a few scripts to some people, and he noticed that the buildings were empty.
I was in Los Angeles pitching some idea. You go into the parking lot and there are no cars there. They are in the business of forging an emotional connection through storytelling to an audience. And they cannot even form an emotional connection to their own employees.
So once again, he reconfirms his own bias that it's impossible to form emotional connections if you aren't in person. It just screams to me that Malcolm has never had any serious online relationships with anyone before. And for the people that go,
those aren't real relationships.
Well, then I guess you're the people he's speaking to. Now, the next part is where it starts to get even better, because Stephen Bartlett, the host of this show, actually is very, very pro coming to the office. And I just want you to listen to how he defends it and how he talks about it.
You're totally preaching to the choir, by the way. Because I've had this conversation with all of my companies and all of my teams. I wrote a letter and I said, listen, we believe in...
He goes, I wrote a letter, we as a company. That doesn't sound like we wrote the letter. It sounds like you wrote the letter telling the company what they're going to do. There was no we involved there, okay?
We believe in interpersonal connection, the value of it. This is why we've never done this podcast on Zoom, even in the pandemic.
Yeah.
There's a difference in meeting someone for a podcast that you've never met and perhaps looked up to versus coming to an office every day to do the same menial tasks that you could do at home. Now, this is the part where he starts talking about how his company had a notorious company culture, and eventually when the pandemic came, people started working at home, and once they realized culture isn't that important, they started quitting. It became pay versus pay.
We ran a company when we had 700 employees. We were notorious for company culture, for having this, where the office was like a community center. Everything happened there. And our employee base, again, as the BBC wrote, were on average about 21, 22 years old.
So people that have just graduated college don't really know much about the corporate world or how corporate will do things to get you to work longer and harder for free, like giving you breakfast, lunch, and dinner so that you never have to leave.
The minute the pandemic comes around, for the first time ever, we see people quitting en masse. Mm-hmm. Because suddenly it's them doing a to-do list in their boxer shorts.
You're in your boxer shorts. Why does it matter? Why are you even thinking about that? Shouldn't it matter that they're getting the task done efficiently for you so that you can make money?
The only sort of remuneration we're giving them, other than, the work is interesting, whatever, is pay.
The only thing we're really giving them, other than the work is interesting or whatever, come on.
It literally then becomes the pay we're giving versus the company down the road that are paying you to sit in your boxer shorts and do your to-do list. So it became pay versus pay. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, there were other people that were willing to pay more.
So honestly, it kind of sounds like you're using company culture as a way to just not pay people what other companies are willing to pay them for their skills. Because your company culture is just so great, and the connectedness and the emotional value we're adding to people is just worth so much money. Is it really? That's probably why they quit when they didn't have it anymore, right? Because it was just so memorable. If your company culture was that good, they wouldn't have quit just because they went remote.
So we saw tons of people leave, and I realized that central to the value that we bring to these people's lives is community and togetherness and connectivity. So I fully believe in it.
So this part is like, how do I say it? It's spoken like a true CEO.
And I also think that, and this is a controversial thing to say, people don't typically know what's right for them.
Who knows best? Is it you?
Do you know what's right for me, Mr. CEO? Of course you do. There's no way I can know what's right for me because otherwise I would be a CEO, right? But I'm not. So you must know what's best for me.
That's how they talk to us.
And the problem we've seen over the last couple of years is spineless virtue signaling, scared CEOs, specifically that are in San Francisco, like the Facebooks and the Twitters, who all had to follow the same kind of leftist, do whatever you want.
Let's pause again. He's calling CEOs out there that said, you know what? These are adults. They can probably decide what works best for them. If they want to come into the office, fine. If they don't, that's fine. Steven here says those people are spineless and they're virtue signaling because they're just following along with what everyone else is doing because they're afraid. That's a bold statement.
Without realizing that company culture should be reverse engineered from your company's mission.
If company culture comes from the company's mission, can someone tell me where ping pong tables are at in the company mission, or loud gongs after you make a sale? Where's that in the company mission? What about beer Fridays? Where's that in the company mission? Now, this is one of the dumbest things I think he's ever said, but
the thing that will help you achieve your company's mission is connectiveness, is employee retention, is a sense of community, is all the other things other than just pay.
what defines whether a business is successful or not? It's profit and loss. You're a CEO, you know this. Stop pandering. So you remember just a second ago, he was making fun of all these virtue signaling, spineless CEOs. Well, he just said that it's all the other things besides money that makes a company successful. But then he catches himself, and I want you to see what I think virtue signaling looks like caught in 4K.
When you think about it from that perspective, you think, in fact, bringing people together, giving them freedom. I mean, they can still have as much freedom as they like to decide the days and what, they've got to have freedom because that's also connected to them fulfilling the mission. But
do you see the way he moves there? He catches himself. He goes, don't forget about freedom. They got to have freedom to decide the days and this and that, but they can't decide where they work. That's it. They have to come to the office. They can't have that kind of freedom. But then look at his body language here.
They've got to have freedom because that's also connected to them fulfilling the mission. But
they've got to have freedom, because that's connected to the mission too. Like he's being forced to say that. Someone pretending to care about a cause they don't care about. That's what I would say this looks like. Don't forget about their freedom. Oh, that's right. They told me to mention that when I tell them they got to come into the office. They just can't have the freedom to decide where they work. Don't forget about freedom. You don't even believe what you're saying, Steven. We're seeing straight through it.
But saying that we are a group of people that get together because we believe in that. We believe in the value of it.
But at the beginning, you go, I wrote a letter about what we think. You are writing the letter. You run the company. You decide. It's not a we. You just say we because that sounds better to everyone who works for you. But wait, there's more. Now he talks about how he took his team to a really expensive office building they built in the middle of COVID for some reason. And then he talks about how it was empty. And
they'd started building the construction of this building in central London during COVID. They've spent what I believe hundreds of millions on this office, completely empty. And I go, wait, what's going on? They go, well, we're trying to get people back in. We do pizzas on Tuesday downstairs. People still don't come in.
It is literally the meme.
We give them pizza. We try to get them to make the commute and give up all the freedom we've gave them. $5 Little Caesars. It just doesn't seem to want to bring them in. I don't know what's going on, Bob.
You think people want to commute for a slice of pizza? But listen to this. Stephen Bartlett here has the perfect solution to get those stinky working at home boxer short wearing employees back to the office.
Why don't you give them clarity? Why don't you say, this is who we are? Because they're scared. They're scared to be clear. So just do whatever you want. Decide whatever you want. That's not how teams work. Name a team that runs on that basis in sports.
That's the solution. Give them clarity. Say, this is who we are. I mean, is it saying this is who we are, or you're saying this is how I run my company? Because that's really, really what you're saying. But you're confusing it with a team saying that's not how teams work in sports. Find me a team in sports. Well, in sports, the team has an owner. The team has a team captain, but you're referring to your company team as if everyone has a say-so. And that's not how it's working. It's very subtle what you're doing here, Steven. You're trying to mix and match the definition of different teams in different contexts. Also, he says, because they're scared, and then he taps his microphone like this. Like, it's some really strange body language coming out. He answers his own question. Why don't you give them clarity? Because they're scared. Like, it's very strange. What a strange way to solve the pizza party issue. Why don't you just say what you're trying to say, which is, I'm the boss, this is my company, and I make the rules here. That's because that's what you're doing. There is no team, there's no we. You just keep trying to make it seem that way. So in this next part, Stephen here pauses the entire podcast, the entire production.
Jack is a good example here. Jack used to come in as a freelancer. So he was one of the people sat at home in his boxer shorts. Part of the reason why, and this, I don't want to speak for Jack, but from what I understand, do correct me if I'm wrong, Jack.
You already did speak for Jack. He was one of those people in his boxer shorts, I'm guessing.
Was because he saw that he was missing something. Jack, please correct me.
Do you really think that the employee, that the entire production has been paused for while the important person, Malcolm Gladwell, across the table, and the CEO, this dude's boss, are both staring at him like vultures going, please correct me if I'm wrong. Do you think the employee is going to correct Mr. Stephen here? Going, no, I wasn't one of those people wearing my boxer shorts. I was doing my job just wherever I wanted. And get ready, it's the simpiest answer you've ever heard.
Well, I'd come to your offices and I'd see what it was like being part of a team, which I hadn't seen before, and yeah, I just realised that's what I've been missing from my work the whole time.
It's exactly what you would want to tell a CEO to make their day so that you can keep your job. Nice. You use one of your employees that goes,
Stephen, your company was everything I was missing, and I want to work for you.
and so because Justin here decided he liked your company culture, everyone needs a company culture and they need to feel connected and have fun and they need to make work also their social life.
And so he was in the freelance sitting at home and then saw this group of young people that were all friends and played football and went out on Fridays and thought, you know what, that's actually as important as just getting a check, you know? So
Yeah, making your work, your social life is as important as getting a check. Being part of a team, the in-person, blah, 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 is just as important as getting a check. I love it. I love it when CEOs tell you what's just as important as money.
I'm actually going to start using our office culture as a way to employ people, which kind of bucks the trend that it's going to sort of disincentivize people to work here. So
Yeah.
It will disincentivize people to work for you. And the people who buy in to corporate culture and drink the corporate Kool-Aid are the people that you want to work for you because you don't have to pay them as much. That's what you said.
And to be honest, there were other people that were willing to pay more.
There were other people out there willing to pay more, and you weren't because you have such a great company culture. Not good. Not a good look, Stephen. I really feel like people who talk like this are going to start listing competitive culture instead of competitive pay on their job application. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk today. I'll link the original video here. It's a really, really long video. I had to sit through this. And, if you appreciate that, maybe click the like button. Click subscribe if you'd like to see me call out more of these silly viewpoints, I guess we'll say. CEOs, business people, they will tell you what's best for you while having zero credentials in doing so. But they need you to go back to work so that they can continue making ridiculous amounts of money off of you. So, anyways, thanks for coming to my TED Talk today, guys. I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you in the next one.